I remember the exact second it stopped feeling like a misunderstanding and started feeling like a setup. It wasn't when the flight attendant raised her voice or when people started staring. It was when she smiled, that tight little smile people get when they think they've caught someone who doesn't belong. My hands were already sweating, my heart racing, but inside my head there was this strange calm, like, okay. So this is what they decided I am. I was 19, flying alone on a late-night flight from Seattle to Chicago. Window seat, premium cabin, nothing flashy. I'd paid for it myself, saved for months, because after everything I'd been through, I wanted one thing that felt easy. I wasn't dressed the part. No blazer, no designer bag. Just a hoodie, jeans, sneakers, and a beat-up backpack that carried my laptop and pretty much my whole life. I sat down, headphones on, trying to disappear into a playlist and a little peace. That peace lasted maybe 10 minutes. I felt a tap on my shoulder, not gentle, more like a poke you use on someone you already don't respect. I pulled my headphones down and looked up. The attendant didn't say hello. She didn't ask if I needed anything. She just looked at me and said, "That seat assignment doesn't seem right." I laughed, a little nervous, trying to keep things light. "It's right," I said. "I can show you my boarding pass." She crossed her arms. "Go ahead." I pulled out my phone, showed her the digital pass. She barely glanced at it, didn't scan it, didn't check anything, just sighed and said, "Yeah, no, that's not valid." Behind her, I could feel eyes on me. You know that feeling when the room goes quiet, but not really quiet? Just quieter around you, like everyone's pretending not to listen while listening harder than ever. I told her again calmly that the ticket was valid, that I bought it through the app, that if she scanned it, it would come right up. She shook her head. "Anyone can fake those," she said loud enough for the people around us to hear. "This cabin is for paying passengers." That sentence hit harder than it should have, because what she was really saying was, "You don't look like one." A man across the aisle leaned over and muttered something about kids these days. A woman, a few rows up, craned her neck, clearly entertained. I felt my face get hot, that mix of embarrassment and anger you don't want to admit is there, but it is. I asked if we could just clear it up quietly. She didn't want quiet. She wanted control. She told me to grab my things and move to the back until they figured it out. I said no. Not rude, not loud, just no. I had a valid ticket and I wasn't moving unless someone actually checked it. That's when the tone changed. Her voice sharpened. "If you don't comply, I'll have security escort you off this plane." For a second, I considered giving in. That's the part people don't talk about. How often you're tempted to just make it stop, even when you know you're right. But something in me snapped. Maybe exhaustion. Maybe pride. Maybe years of being underestimated finally stacking up. "Then call them," I said. My voice was shaking, but I didn't back down. Because I'm not moving. She turned on her heel and marched away. I thought, okay, good, someone higher up will come, this will get fixed. Instead, she came back with a supervisor who didn't even look at my ticket before deciding I was a problem. They started talking over me, not to me. Words like fraud, suspicious policy. Someone said my bag looked unusual. Another said they'd seen me wandering near the gate earlier. I hadn't. I'd been sitting exactly where I was supposed to be. Then it escalated fast, too fast. One of them reached for my backpack. I grabbed it instinctively. "Don't touch that," I said. That was it. That was all it took. "She's being aggressive," the attendant said immediately. She tried to grab me. I barely touched her sleeve. But once that word was out there, aggressive, the story was written. A security officer boarded the plane. A big guy, stern face, didn't ask questions, just told me to stand up. I asked to call my sister. Asked to speak to the pilot. Asked again for someone to scan the ticket. Nobody listened. My wrists were twisted behind my back before I even fully understood what was happening. Plastic cuffs, tight and unforgiving. Someone told me to stop resisting while I was crying that I wasn't resisting at all. They walked me down the aisle like I was a criminal. People stared. Some looked uncomfortable. Some looked satisfied. One person actually pulled out their phone. They strapped me into a jump seat near the front. My hands were numb. My chest felt hollow. I remember thinking, this can't be real. This can't be how this ends. The captain announced a delay due to a security issue. I stared at the floor, trying not to fall apart, trying to breathe through the humiliation. I'd done everything right, bought the ticket, followed the rules, stayed calm, and it didn't matter. What they didn't know was that my watch had an emergency feature. When my heart rate spiked and my movement went erratic, it automatically sent my location and a short audio clip to my emergency contact. My sister. By the time the plane pulled back to the gate, she was already on the phone with lawyers, with airport management, with anyone who would listen. The door opened. I expected police. Instead, a woman in a sharp suit walked on, followed by 2 airport officials. She scanned the cabin once, then looked straight at me. "Untie them," she said. Everyone froze. She introduced herself as the airline's regional compliance director. Turns out, my sister worked for the parent company. Not high up enough to scare people usually, but high up enough to know exactly who to call when something went very wrong. They cut the cuffs off. My wrists throbbed as blood rushed back in. The attendant who started it all stood there pale, clutching my backpack like it was evidence. The compliance director asked very calmly to see the boarding pass. She scanned it. 1 beep. Valid. Seat confirmed. The silence after that was brutal. The attendant started talking fast. Protocol. Safety. Misunderstanding. The director held up a hand. "You restrained a passenger without verifying a ticket," she said, "and you accused them of a crime with no evidence." The flight was canceled. Statements were taken. I was escorted off the plane, not in cuffs this time, but wrapped in a blanket, shaking, still trying to process how close I came to being completely erased by someone else's assumptions. The fallout didn't end there. There was an investigation. Footage, audio, witnesses. Turns out this wasn't the first complaint against that crew, just the first one that came with proof and someone willing to push back. Months later, I sat in a small hearing room and told my story. My voice cracked, my hands shook, but I told it anyway. Not because I wanted revenge, but because I wanted it on record. I wanted someone to say, yes, this happened, and it was wrong. They were disciplined. Some were fired. One lost their certification. It didn't undo what I felt that night, but it mattered. Here's the part people always ask me about. Do I feel vindicated? Do I feel like I won? Honestly, some days, yes. Some days I still flinch when someone in authority raises their voice. Both things can be true. What I learned is this: being right doesn't protect you. Calm doesn't protect you. Money, education, politeness, none of it guarantees safety if someone has already decided who you are. But telling your story, that matters. Documentation matters. Standing your ground even when your voice shakes matters. So, I want to know what you think. Was the crew just doing their job, or did they cross a line that never should have been crossed? Have you ever been in a situation where you were judged before you even spoke? And what did you do about it? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Argue if you want. Share if you've been there. Because these conversations don't change anything if we stop having them. And the only reason this didn't disappear into silence is because someone refused to stay quiet.